darkness concealed her from the red shields below. Unfortunately, it also hid the ledges from her own sight. The boundary between stone and air was easy to miss. From time to time, she slid a foot out to check her position, tracing her toe along the edge to fix the border in her mind. Yes, she could die tonight. But as Kyra crept through the darkness, her doubts faded against the excitement of a challenging job. Those who knew her understood her skills. They knew she had no fear of heights and never lost her balance. But not even Flick, the closest thing to an older brother she had, understood the sheer joy that came over her every time she raced through the night. There was something about the way the darkness forced her to rely on her other senses, the way her body rose to the challenge. Her limbs silently promised her she would not fall, and by now she knew she could trust them. The buildings across the path gave way to a courtyard with 3 trees, and Kyra slowed her pace, counting windows as she passed. The 7th from the southwest corner, James had said. These outer palaces were guest rooms for country noblemen visiting the council. They were built securely, but emphasized comfort more heavily than the fortress-like inner compound. And thus they had glass windows instead of shutters, making it easy to see that the bedroom inside was dark. A minute fiddling with the latch, and the pane swung open on greased hinges. There was a shape on the bed, snoring in the loud and punctuated way of men who had indulged too much in rich food and drink. Kyra wondered for a moment what it would be like to get fat, to eat so much and work so little. No matter. Tonight, the nobleman would share some of his bounty. She started with the dresser next to the bed, coaxing open the top drawer. Silk caught the dry skin of her fingertips. Apparently, the nobleman had a penchant for embroidered silk handkerchiefs. Not the jewellery box she sought, but Kyra took one and slipped it into her belt pouch. After checking the rest of the dresser, she moved to the desk. The latch gave easily to her pick, but there was nothing inside but documents and seals. The sleeping nobleman shifted, and Kyra dropped to the floor. He rolled over, snorting loudly before his breathing once again settled. Kyra counted 10 breaths, then went to the chest, taking care with the hefty cover. The top layer was fabric. Soon she was up to her elbows in velvet nightrobes, but still no ruby. If there was a jewellery box, it almost certainly would have been in the dresser or the chest. James had assured her that the nobleman wasn't the type to hide his jewellery. Could he have been mistaken? She combed the room again, feeling along the floors and walls for trapdoors, even running her hands over the bed's thin mattress. Still nothing. Kyra bit her lip. The moon was rising, a thin crescent above the horizon that announced the coming dawn. She'd already stayed too long. Taking one last glance around the room, she crept back out the window. Getting out was harder than coming in. Her limbs were slow from a night without sleep, and her nerves were frayed from being so long on her guard. By the time Kyra reached the meeting spot 2 blocks outside the palace, the sky was visibly lighter, and she was in a considerably worse mood. 2 men awaited her at the street corner. They hadn't seen her yet, and she took a moment to study them. The first was solidly built, with a stubborn jaw and brown hair curled close to his head. Flick. When Kyra had first told him about the job, he'd listed all the reasons she should refuse, from the dangers within the palace to his suspicions about James. Her friend's arguments had been more reasonable than Kyra cared to admit, but by then she had already decided. Since Flick couldn't dissuade her from going,